Yeah, so I'm overall bullish on Unstoppable, but I don't think it's going to be a smooth transition. I think um, a lot of the naming services are going to probably be fine in 5 years. The main thing is that they will be competition in the traditional Web 2 world for these TLDs, top level domains, like .crypto, .wallet. They do not own the domains that they have in Web 3. The reason why that is a potential problem is ICANN, who is the governing body of domain TLDs of the internet, they often issue out auctions or ways for purchase these TLDs. So at some point,
sorry, quickly, like when you say they don't own the domain in, I think you mentioned Web 3, but you mean that they don't own the domain in Web 2, right?
Correct. They do not own the Web 2 version of that, which is fine. But the problem is we want to onboard a lot of people. And whenever you have these potential collisions, like there's no collision now. No one has .wallet in the DNS, the traditional Web 2 world. So there's no collision. But if ICANN offers up these extensions that Unstoppable has, and Unstoppable does not get those extensions, then there will be potential collisions at a few areas. One is the client, which a client could be a browser, would not know where to look up, let's say I have Clayton.wallet. It would not know if someone has bought, let's say Google buys .wallet, and you type in Clayton.wallet into Chrome. It's going to go to Clayton.wallet. It's going to go to DNS lookup, that resolver, and find the IP address of where Clayton.wallet is at. Ideally, you would want something like the browser to know, like, okay, this is a .wallet extension. I should look in the Web3 network on-chain type data. So I need to go that path. So that is a potential collision in terms of it'll be confusing for the client to choose which one. And there's a few of those that Unstoppable Domains has. I think the safest one would probably be .x, because I don't think there are any .x TLDs, or I don't think it's possible for that currently in the Web 2 TLD registration.
Wait,
so
why is that?
I don't know the reason why.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the reason. I don't think there's a technical reason. It's just they probably didn't do it. And they potentially probably could at some point, but it's the lowest risk of the current ones. And then, so there's that kind of collision. And then one thing with ENS, they're definitely the front runner in terms of, I would say, credible. Like, it's the cool one. We talked about last one of the podcasts. We talked about how Bored Apes or CryptoPunks has the old school following, the OGs, and it's the one that we think will be 10 years from now. That's the one you'd want to have in your wallet as a CryptoPunk. .eth, I would imagine, is going to be the front runner of that as well, of the current extensions. So let's say all scenarios, they all work. Like Unstoppable gets all the .wallets, they actually get .crypto and all those things. I think .eth is still going to be like the .com of Web3. It's not entirely true it's not entirely certain, because a lot of people don't like Ethereum, so they might not want a .eth address. So you don't know how favoritism is going to play in it, and that's why .x could be a big name in the future as well, because it's agnostic to chain, so it might be more popular than .eth. But anyways, one of the things that ENS offers is, I don't know if they offer it yet or if they're going to offer it, but they offer wrappers for traditional domain holders to wrap their extension into the ENS infrastructure. And what that means is that Google.com, Google can say, hey, we own Google.com. Let's assign it to an ENS registry, and then we can tie addresses that we want to tie to Google.com. So they technically would have you could technically send, if Google does that, you could technically send, and they have an ETH address registered to that, you could send to that address, like Google.com, you could send crypto or ETH to it, and it would resolve to their wallet they've registered. Now that also would introduce a potential collision on the Web3 level. If let's say Google buys .wallet and Unstoppable Domains is using the Web3 version of that. What if they wrap .wallet into the ENS infrastructure? Now you don't even know which Web3 .wallet you want to send to. So those are the things that are going to be a really heated discussions in the next 5 to 10 years. Probably don't take 10 years, but 5 years or so on like what are going to be the primary ways to send crypto from a domain perspective. And yeah, so I would not be surprised. The bear case is for Unstoppable is they rug a few of the holders certain TLDs, like .wallet could be rugged, .crypto could be rugged. And I think that would hurt them as a brand. But the thing is, and that might be like, I think because they're a private company versus ENS is meant to be more of like a public good type infrastructure, that they will move just as fast as, or much faster than ENS. I think they'll catch up to ENS in terms of integrations potentially. And I think that will be a beneficial because what their motive is to shoot first, ask questions later. They're hyper aggressive in terms of trying to integrate with other services. So whenever ICANN potentially releases these domains, that they have priority because they already have a large enough integration platform and user base that can justify them having this domain. So that's what they're doing. They're going hyper aggressive. They're doing the Airbnb and Uber tactics of just enable us for countries that might not be legal yet in those countries, and just let them have the lawyers work it out later type thing. So that is what Unstoppable's strategy is, and I can 100% see that working because it's worked in a lot of tech scenarios. So yeah, and I think one of the bear cases I have with ENS is the DAO part of ENS. I think that's too soon. I think it's great. I think DAOs are going to be the future for sure. I think they're going to be one of the more regulated bodies of crypto in the future because I think they will actually compete with actual governments. Like you'll have a DAO that can raise funding instantly, which has not been able to. It's more difficult in the current Web 2 infrastructure. Now it's like you can send crypto, the whole Ukraine thing. People are sending crypto to Ukraine. Like these things are going to be very powerful the more and more people onboard to crypto. So DAOs will by default become more powerful. But the current types of DAOs that I see, I think they're not ideal. Mainly because one of the worst parts of current politics is how coupled money is to decision making. And now the current models most of the current models I've seen in Web3 is like, okay, let's make the voting mechanism directly correlated to how many tokens you have. So that seems like a terrible idea in general. It's like, okay, let's take the worst of traditional world and apply it to Web3 and make that the core part of voting. So I think it was not a good idea for ENS to do that. It almost comes across as like, hey, let's get rich. I don't know if that's their motives. They seem pretty, I'm an ENS fan, but I thought that was a mistake. Because what's to stop? Let's say Michael Saylor, he's like, I don't know if you've seen the meme of him saying that there's no second best. It's only Bitcoin, that kind of thing. What if he goes like rogue and he says there's no second best and he just buys all the ENS tokens and he pretty much makes it, okay, now you have to integrate on, Lightning Network. So you can still manipulate these stupid DAOs just by big spinners, because if an institution wants to buy the tokens to control this DAO or whatever DAO, they can. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. I think are getting a huge voting power. So I think it was premature to do those things, and that's the bearish case on ENS, and why I think Unstoppable has a legitimate chance for these kind of things because they're already privatized. They aren't trying to promote that they're decentralized. They might work towards it later, but they can move fast now. They don't have to do like to jump through the voting tools that they can see. Okay, a trend is happening. ENS is doing something. Let's just copy it or do something similar and move faster than them. So that's one of the benefits of being a private company. And then we can work later once we've established our footing, then spread out to make it essential. So those are going to be really interesting competitions happening between those two companies. Or I don't even call them both companies, but I view them as companies, but people would disagree on that. Or other domain TLD providers for Web3. Because I think there's already legal issues with Unstoppable trying to fight some other company with .wallet, which we saw the other day. So there's even fighting amongst the Web3 TLDs, let alone once the ICANN releases some of these for auction in the future. Like there's more conflict on that. So yeah, I think that's the big pushers is how things are going to play out.
Yeah, you just talked about that there's a case happening right now where another company is offering .wallet domain names, presumably in the Web3 world, because like you said, the .wallet domain, like Web2 world hasn't been released yet. And what's interesting is that this case, it shows how many domain names that Unstoppable has already sold. And let me try to pull up, it's somewhere in the hundreds of thousands. And so they're arguing in court that, hey, we already have a big footprint. They're asking a judge to say, hey, shut down the other company. So just like you said, they're moving very fast and it's crazy how much money they raised because I was like, why do you need that? It's just a domain system, right? But, it's, a lot of times to pay for lawyers to fight out cases in court.
Yeah, that I think they're going to be a hyper aggressive company and they're going to diversify out. They'll build other products. Like they'll work on the integrations now and try to get as many integrations and build up that core user base. So they have a case whenever ICANN releases these domains. Like .NFT is going to be highly fought after. .crypto will probably be highly fought after. .wallet. All these things will be very fought after, and lawyers will be fighting over that for a while, I'm sure. But yeah, I think lost my train of thought. What did I say before that? I lost my train of thought on that one.
Just how ICANN will release, when they release these domain names, they are top level domains that there'll be a big fight over.
So, so they'll be fought, but they'll also, like once they have their established user base and they have the integrations they want, I think that they will start to diversify as a company and build other products. So a big raising of funding is going to probably go towards innovation in adding value on top of the domains they currently have, like whether it be they're building something similar to, I don't know, what are some of the widget type website builders you can do in the traditional world?
Like Squarespace.
Yeah, WordPress, something like that. They might turn their company into that after that, and maybe they'll turn the domain part of it a DAO later once they have the footing, and then they can turn that into DAO, and then they, as a company, would pivot to integrate or to build other products. I think that's probably where the raised funds comes from, on top of you need to have, for lawyers too. So it'll be, they're going to be hyper competitive and hyper aggressive. They're taking a Web2 company playbook for sure on how they're establishing a footing.
Yeah. So on the other thing about ENS or .eth. So when I was looking for names, right, for our podcast, and there's websites where you can search for the name, like our handle, so that you can make sure you can get that same handle name on across social media platforms, right? Same thing with, when you're looking for a .com, right, a domain name, you put in the word and it searches whether the .com is available, and if it's not, it also shows you, if .net is available, .org, right? Now, the other day I was searching for just, Hello Player One. And what I found so interesting is that, so this website I used, brandsnag.com, it now lists whether .eth is available for the name. This is a Web 2 website telling you you should get .eth. You should make sure that it's available. That's crazy.
And that's why I think .eth is currently the favorite. It's the one I have several of both ENS and Unstoppable Domains. If I were to gun to my head, putting money down in Vegas, like which is going to be, if there's going to be one winner, it'd be ENS. But yeah, I think Unstoppable will get to that point. Like the thing is, they have to prove that they are going to truly have these TLDs in the Web 2 way infrastructure, because I think that will probably slow integrations down, especially if they're rugging certain customers. Like someone buys .wallet and they rug everyone that owns .wallet. That's going to hurt the integration partnerships as well that they've already integrated with. So other people might be slower to integrate with Unstoppable, even though they're hyper aggressive, because they don't know how it's going to play out in the future. And you'd hate to, build something and then find out that they are integrate with them and you realize, oh, you can't do this anymore because someone bought the traditional world. But ENS, like they have the clout, like they have the like if you're a non-paid celebrity, not Shaq.soul or anything like that, because he put that in his Twitter handle. They usually have like a .eth name. So yeah, it's crazy to see that starting to see Web 2 worlds realize that, okay, you need to have your branding in .eth, and maybe at some point you'll see some .crypto or .wallet ones, but for foreseeable, I think .eth is going to be the player.
Yeah, I do like the fact that Unstoppable has domain names that could be used, that's agnostic. Because like you said, there are people that don't like Ethereum, right? Bitcoin maxis, right? They could just not get a .eth name just to spite, right? Even though it's the thing, like even though it's like the .com equivalent, which it is at this point for Web3. Mm-hmm. So I am looking heavily into .x, whether it's going to be a good investment. So wanted to ask about,
at the very least, if people are like curious, at the very least, to what to get, I would just get the ones. If you're viewing from an investment perspective, .eth would probably be the safest of them. But I would get the ones you care about across all of the domains, just in case, because you'd hate to have one and then you find out they fall over, like they aren't moving fast enough and the integration slow down, those things, and you can't use it anywhere. So you'd better to hedge against something you'd actually use, because I think these would be very right. I think domain names are going to be much more powerful in Web3. I think everyone who's in Web3 agrees on that, or for the most part. So I'd hedge your bets on getting ones that you truly want to use long term for yourself across all of them.
So I wanted to ask about the .eth Web 2 domain, right? Because you mentioned that that's actually owned by Ethiopia, or that resolves to, right? Like explain that part, because doesn't ENS have to eventually buy out the .eth Web 2 domain?
So my understanding is this, I'm not an expert on this, but ICANN or whoever distributes the TLDs that are relevant to the governments. So .us, the US government would have that one. .eth, Ethiopia technically has. They technically are the direct owner of that. I believe they use a different TLD for their government website. I don't know what it is. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. But my understanding is, in this reading from Brantley, he's Brantley Milligan. He's one of the main ENS people. He always has some good threads on ENS in general. He mentioned that, this is a while ago, he mentioned that they have a partnership with Ethiopia, the government. I don't know if that's like a formal, written on paper thing where it's like, internet handshake, high five over Zoom type thing. I have no idea what the formalities of that is, but but my understanding is that Ethiopia owns .eth, and they're willing to let .ens, or not .es, the ENS provider to have .eth in the Web 2 and Web 3. So they basically have it, an agreement with this country, is my understanding. But they technically do not own it in Web 2 world.
Hey everyone, this is Jack, and thanks for watching this clip from Hello Player One. If you enjoyed it, you can click here to watch another one, or if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here. See you later.